Our case study is on 4-H, starring Emily Tompkins and Cheyenne Corbett. We're going to start by talking about the 4-H vision, which is a world in which youth and adults learn, grow, and work together as catalysts for positive change. 4-H is a community-oriented youth program that is globally recognized. The 4-H's are head, heart, hands, and health. The 4-H mission is that 4-H empowers youth to reach their full potential, working and learning in partnership with caring adults.
So our first out of our three themes is building relationships. In Posse Sahlberg, in Jules on Schools, and Berliner Glass, they all talked about major topics under this theme, and one of them is parent-child, club leader in this case, involvement. Within 4-H, if you have a child that is enrolled within the program, you get a newsletter every month saying what has happened in the 4-H world, what your child might have been involved in, what community outreach programs they did that month. Also, if you wanted to become more involved as a parent, you can become a club leader or even just help out in volunteering on club activities.
Some negatives in 4-H also would be with that, at least with the parent-teacher and club leader parent involvement, would be that there would be too many of the same type of leader in the club, and so we think that maybe they should have some variability, considering that some kids get bored with having one teacher for too long and they need some different ideas and different ways of teaching in order to understand.
And on this topic, Sahlberg talked on page 92 about how in the Finnish school system, students seem to have more success in everything when parent, teachers, students, and faculty were involved in the learning process. It seemed to be a more open, engaging atmosphere, and everyone felt comfortable with the things being taught and the way they were being taught.
Our next kind of topic is that if kids operate on the principle that they are doing well for others and that they're constantly involved in something and they're helping others without unselfishness from themselves, then they end up doing better in general. And that was kind of what William's premise was on page 38. And in that we say that 4-H is really good with keeping kids civically engaged and keeping them in the community, because 4-H is a community-oriented program. They work a lot with how to build up a town or building projects across towns, even gardening and things like that. And so those are kind of our ideas as to what kind of matches with William's quote that we found.
Even though 4-H is a great community-oriented program, there are some downfalls of this. They tend to do the same kind of community outreach programs year in and year out. If they would expand their horizon to try to find different organizations to help or different organizations to fundraise for, I think they would have a broader expansion or broader reach, I guess. So we learned about English immersion programs and how they're detrimental because they take away the culture and the value system of the student being forced into this situation. And 4-H, when they expanded from just a little space to eventually countrywide and then nationwide, they made sure to adapt their program into what space they were going into. When they expanded into the suburbs, for instance, they took away more of the ag base and put it into more of technology of ag. That way it was still connected to their foundation of the club, but they were being able to reach people in a more interesting way.
Something that we think that they could work on maybe is expanding their 4-H club into inner cities. It would be kind of difficult to get to the inner city, but it also would be a really good benefit for some of the inner city kids. And it could also help with their civic outreach with those kids as well. Profo Devo,
Otherwise known as professional development.
In Sahlberg, page 83, it talks about research-based teaching and how it's helped the Finnish culture in developing their educational system. And it kind of correlated really well with 4-H because they conducted a longitudinal study over the course of 10 to 12 years. that covered how children grew civically throughout those years. And it was considered one of the first of its kind in gathering that kind of information. And so we thought that it was a really interesting piece that added really well with Solberg.
With that, we didn't really see a whole lot of negatives with that. The only thing is that it would be very costly to replicate again. If they would want to do it again, they'd probably have to think of something on a smaller scale and wouldn't get as broad or as great of results as they did the first time.
On Williams' page 79, it talked about how we needed to re-envision, envision, and constantly look at our schools in order to improve. And with 4-H, they do that. They look into their program and they constantly are looking for new ways to improve their program and helping others, especially children grow into community-oriented people. And so we thought it really matched really well with how Williams talked of doing that, and they also did that research study, which definitely helped their case as well.
At the club level, they have a lot of options to let the club members decide what they want to do and how they want to help their community or influence the space they're working in. But once it gets to a bigger scale, it's harder for that to happen. And so when they are looking at these statistics and seeing how well they're doing, they actually need to look at current club members and think about the future club members and what experiences will actually make them excited about the program and not just doing it because it gets them an award. On page 130 of Berliner and Glass, they talked about how the context can affect the variability of the program effectiveness. If students in the rural communities were learning something or learning the exact same things as people in suburban areas, they probably wouldn't be as interested because it's not affecting their daily lives. In rural communities, they really focus on the ag culture and the showmanship of like different animals, while in the city level, they tend to focus more on like the technology of agriculture because that is what they're exposed to. They're not exposed to how to handle a cow, and that is how they're able to reach out to so many people and still have quite a bit of effectiveness for everyone.
So something we think that they should change about that is that they should have more of the farm-related or agriculturally related 4-H clubs join with the more urban setting 4-H clubs and kind of like connect and integrate with each other in order to see the differences in both sides, so then they can appreciate their differences and then move forward with their development. Our next theme is success.
So on this theme, Jules Zone Schools talked about the ladder and how kids were publicly seen with their grades and everything. 4-H does something really well. They don't limit the success of their club members. They don't give out a certain number of first place or second place. They don't limit it in that way. But the one thing that they could do better is they do display all of those publicly, and they don't consult with the owner of the project before. And some kids who didn't get what they were expecting could take this and be hurt by it.
On page 17, Solberg talks about how their schooling is trying to intrinsically motivate them holistically in order to become students that are really, really successful. And in 4-H, we think that they do that really well. They are really good at individualizing things for students, and that they can choose things that they enjoy doing towards their interests. Like they have the option of doing different kinds of projects for 4-H in the county fair or even into the regionals and state kind of competitions. So they have a lot of open-ended and easily, like, they can choose things that they really like to do. So it's not much of a chore for them to do the projects.
Some things that do limit the child's individuality, though, is especially when they show cattle or hog or anything like that, there is a certain standard of dress. Berliner and Glass state on page 121 that a group can complete something that the individual cannot, and in 4-H they definitely use that. When I was in 4-H, I know we had community beautification programs, and one year we decided to make exiting and welcoming signs to our town, and that obviously was something we could not complete by ourselves, but as a group we were able to do it.
One thing that we think that they could work on when it comes to group working together is that they should be not so varied in age. In some 4-H groups, they are varied by like from 6th to 8th grade, or 6th to 12th grade. So it makes it more difficult for them to work together, especially with the large age difference of 6 years. And so maybe they should make their groups a little smaller to make group work a little easier.
In true 4-H tradition, we shall end every meeting in the 4-H pledge. I pledge my head to clear thinking, my heart to greater loyalty, my hands to larger service, my health to better living, for my club, my community, my country, and my world.